This ain't even working. Hey, there we go. This whole thing is still really weird to me, people, so I'm trying. Alright, so remember, I put up a video called This Math, okay? And, or The Math, I should say. And, broke down, the time scale in which we live by versus a time scale that's based in an infinite possibility or probability that we are living in a 7-day cycle. So we're always seeking something, but for some reason can never quite obtain it. But there are people in this world that are of elite status or power that can always seem to obtain things that we can't, and sometimes that's on a global scale. Okay, so this is what you're seeing before you is vortex math with numerology added to it. And I'm sorry that I don't have the greatest production quality. This is all on an iPhone. I'm an Android guy, but this was free. Okay. And now here's what I want to do. I'm gonna show you the actual vortex scale. Okay, because I see a lot of people try to talk about this thing online, and they get too complicated with it. Like I believe they're overthinking it, or they're not drawing it out right or something, or I'm not quite sure why they're having such a problem with it. So this was that scale that I drew up that deals with the numerology added to it, which I think is very important to this, because numerology is like the understanding the characteristics behind the vortex math and the numbers themselves. Okay, so what I did this morning is this is the actual vortex scale without any writing in it or anything like that. Okay, now the reason I did a dotted line here, all right, is because a lot of people never put the correlation between 3 and 6. They always go from 3 to 9 and from 9 to 6 or 6 to 9 and 9 to 3. However you want to look at that, all right? So, now this right here, it kind of looks like two kind of, oblong rectangles or something like that. But in my opinion, it's the infinity symbol. But because the scale has to be drawn so big to get everything in here, then it's a little large. And the premise behind vortex math is, as far as I can tell from some research that I have done on this, is that if you can figure out how to make this work for you, you pretty much have an unlimited, abundant source of energy in this world. I know that may sound hocus pocus to some people out there, but it's really not, because if people are created by the creator, however you want to call that creator, and people come up with stuff like this, then obviously that information is being given to them from a higher power, higher source, the creator, your God, whatever you want to call it. All right. In my opinion, it all boils back down to the same thing. And in my case, I believe it's consciousness. That's just me. And we've had some talks about that, and I've talked to some other people about it, and it's really hard for them to understand. But, it is what it is. Okay, so this, like I said, this is the basics. So you got 3, 6, and 9, and that's like an infinite loop. 3 plus 3 equals 6, 6 plus 3 equals 9, 3 divided by 3 equals 3, and it continues on and on and on and on and on. Okay, now, like I was saying earlier, we live in a 7-day week. All right? But if we lived in a 7-day week, the way that, based on how mathematics and numbers work, which are almost the principle behind everything in life, it all kind of boils back down to math. That's why you're always told when you're a child, math is very important, but you never want to listen unless you enjoy math. So if you lived in a 7-day week, you'd go 1, 2, 4, and then you jump up to 7, and then you go back to 5, and then you jump all the way up to 1. Okay, so you're completely skipping this whole quarter. Like, look at this like clock. Okay, you're pretty much skipping from, what is that, 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock. None of that time, none of that space exists. And that's like a day. You know what I mean? Like, because if you're breaking this down into quarters, there's 2 in each quarter. So that's like missing out an entire day, in my opinion. And, you know, maybe other people that have saw the video, the My Math video, they might understand this. You know, people for some reason think that this is kind of complicated, and it's really not. And I may not have the fullest understanding of it, but I've done something with it that I have yet to see anybody else be able to do with it. There's even a guy that is trying to prove that vortex-based math is a there's 42. Vortex-based math is the devil's work. Well, the thing about numbers is numbers are neutral. They can't be good or bad. I don't care what anybody thinks. Numbers don't work like that. They can't pick sides. You know, numbers are what they are, which is the same as it is what it is. Numbers are what they are, period. End of story. And 0 is not a number. It's a neutral force. It is the lack of number. Just like white is the lack of color, and black is an abundance of all color. Mishmashed together. That's how you get black. Okay, now this is kind of a conspiracy thing right here, but I think once I show you this, hopefully there are people out there that will understand this, okay? And remember, 9 is global awareness, completion. The global awareness is what 9 means, okay? Now, I did another drawing here because, you know, production is just beautiful in my house, okay, folks? Make it as simple as I can, okay? Now, what I did here is I initially drew my basic version of the Freemason symbol, the Masonic symbol, which is the 2 rulers, or the square, all right, or straight edge, whatever you want to call it. It's really a square. And then you've got your compass. See your compass there, you know, for making circles and stuff like that, you know, part of geometry, you know, and I was watching some stuff on, what was that? I was watching some stuff earlier, and geometry is part of math. Just go with that for this morning. I'm not going to get into that too much because I'm still researching that a little bit. Okay, but the Masonic symbol, okay, it lines up between the 3, the 6, and the 9. I know that I didn't really present it that well, but if you look at it, these 2 points right here should in theory line up at 3 and 6, okay, and then the tip lines up at 9, all right, but they put a G in the center, all right. Now, the square is like their version of the infinity sign, but it's almost like they're cutting out, you know, that section that I'm talking about, because if you really just elongate these 2 points, you know, if they weren't so sharp, the red lines, you could make that meet, okay? So what I'm really boiling down to here is Nikola Tesla was killed for this information right here, the coming up or understanding of this theory and how it could potentially produce like an unlimited abundance of energy. Okay? Now that energy is supposed to be universal energy. It's like life force of the universe, okay? But like I said, since we're missing one day, we're not truly living in a infinite cycle, okay? We're just not. And if you watch the video I posted last night, you would understand that. You know, there's no way that the system that we have in my opinion, is correct. And if you're smarter than I am and you can prove me wrong on why I am wrong, by all means, do it. And if you do it, then we'll go from there, okay? But if 9 is global awareness, and the Freemasons put a big old G inside their symbol, which in my opinion is global awareness, but look at how it's a triangle. 3, 6, and 9 makes a triangle. 3, 6, and 9, 3, 6, and 9, 3, 6, and 9. It's an ever-repeating pattern, just using the most basic of mathematics. All right, the basic. But if you look on the back of the dollar, it's the all-seeing eye. Okay, well, it's known that that's supposed to be the all-seeing 9 is the globalists, the people that run this world are watching us always. And especially in this country and some other countries, but it's very predominant here, okay? Now, I believe that they took that 8th day out so we would be physically unbalanced, all right? Because 8, like I was saying, 8 flipped on its side is the infinity symbol. It's something that is never ending. That doesn't mean that, at some point, all the energy won't burn out. We're not even going to go that far down the rabbit hole right now until the end of time. But how is it that we have 2 sexes, okay? 2 sexes. And if you take 8 and you divide that by 2, you get 4, okay? And if you go back up here, that's, the salt of the earth, all right? And the salt of the earth is the hardworking men and women, okay? But if you come back up to 8, then you've got balance and power, which means that it takes both male and female, which is why it's a unisex, in order to balance this world and to bring unity, which is the same as power. If we can unify amongst ourselves, then we can take the power back from the people that are lying to us. Okay, now look, we live in a 7-day week. 7-day week, like I was saying earlier, is the seeker. Men are always, especially nowadays. Now, there was a point where it wasn't a big thing, and I told you I'd go into this, because I was telling you about how the way the time is set up, and if you give me a second, I'll pull that back out. Hold on just a second. I know this is great production quality, but here we go. Okay? If you look at this, remember, if you break down military time, it comes out to a dynamic force. But if you break down the way that time is looked at by most modern people in the world, okay, and I say modern specifically, comes back to the caretaker, the female. The female, without females, we can't reproduce life. But without males, you can't plant the seed to reproduce life. Okay, so by looking at this, all right, I'm going to flip this around real quick. By looking at this in this kind of format, if you stop and you think about what's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of hostility between men and women. But there's also a lot of hostility between other countries and our government. Okay, even though, we try to have, diplomatic relations and stuff like that, most of them still hate us. And they're, I'm not even going to get into the UN stuff right now, but, there's a lot of people in the world that hate Americans. They just do. And some of it may be that they're being lied to by their country. Some of it may be our actions that we're showing the rest of the world, because if you really sit down and think about it, Americans have more freedoms than pretty much any other country on this planet. And a lot of people, they hate us for that because they have to jump through hoops and stuff like that. Like I just heard today that apparently, according to the internet, and this guy seems pretty smart. He's been doing this for a while. But apparently in England, you have to have a license just to own a television. And that's something that any 4-year-old could walk to the Walmart If he had the money, he could buy a television at 4 years old, no license required. You see what I'm saying? So we have a lot of freedoms in this world. And I think some of these other countries think we take them for granted, okay? And we're like the last step, okay? If they can complete their agendas in the next, we'll say at max 5 to 10 years, okay? And I'm not going to get into 2030. I still got to do some research on Agenda 2030. But if they can get if they can get guns out of the American people's hands in the next 5 to 10 years, then the globalist will control this planet. They will. There is no question about it. There's no question whatsoever. All right? Because then only the people that they want to have weapons. That doesn't mean these weapons manufacturers are going to stop making weapons. Maybe some of them might go under, but these weapon manufacturers, they're in it. Yeah, they like the people and stuff like that, and some of them may be, very patriotic, but some of these people are in this for the money. They're not in it for the guns. They're not in it for the people. They're in it for the money. It's just that simple. Any big business is like that. So what I'm saying to you is, I tried to put this out the other day, and I only got one good really response to it, and that's neither here nor there. But this agenda, or this rally, which I guess is part of the agenda, but this rally that's happening, okay, tomorrow, not in Washington, in Richmond, Virginia, okay, it's like people are trying to say, they're doing it to test. Some people are calling it a trap and stuff like that, and it could turn into that. And it may be that, but it's actually a test to see how far they can really push the Americans. And that's not just the government, quotation here. That's the people that are controlling the government. And some of the people in the government are for it. But I guarantee you there are people in the government that are not for that. And their hand is being played for them. All right? I know people don't like to hear this kind of stuff, but it is what it is, folks. Like, I hate that phrase, but at this point, it is what it is. There's no way that 100% of normal, everyday people that work for the government are for the government. It doesn't matter. Police, FBI, CIA, them people, sometimes they just get wrapped up in something because they enjoyed it at the beginning and it became something else. Just like, normal everyday people like that. Like I was a mechanic for years. I don't love that shit anymore, and I guess I could still do it and make money, but it's only hurting me more and more that I try to force myself to do something that I don't enjoy. It's that simple, okay? So, this whole thing in Virginia is really just a test, a stepping stone to see how far they can push the bear before the bear strikes back. It's that simple, and a bear in nature wouldn't be pushed one time, and that bear would be, attacking, all right? So, to get back to the math stuff that I was talking about, all right, this 7-day period that we live in, I believe, even though people adapt to it, okay, there are people that can't adapt to it and cannot live in society correctly. And there are people that, think that the government is just the greatest thing in the world. And then there are people like me that understand where they're coming from but don't like it. And then there are people that absolutely hate it. And what they're doing is they're driving division between men and women. Because if they can keep us fighting amongst each other, then they can try to sneak things like this in. And yes, there are always going to be 2A supporters and everything like that. But if you keep people distracted with things like impeachment, and you keep people distracted with debates and, the upcoming election, the Ukraine bullshit, China deals, stuff like that, less people are seeing what they don't want them to see versus what they are wanting them to see. All right? And they're driving a division not only between, the Republicans and the Democrats, if you want to call that, but between men and women, okay? Because they're trying to seek a true global control, and they're trying to tell us, if my understanding is correct, like I said, I'm still going to look into 2030, that's supposed to be one world order, one big worldwide economy, okay? And if you got guns gone from everyone, then that's super easy for all the militaries to go in and do whatever they do and build partnerships and fight the ones that don't take their land and hoobla hobla, however you want to put it. All right? But this division, especially the division that they're driving in between men and women, okay? So like the globalists believe that humans, all right, unless they're the elitist and they're the smartest ones and they're part of the club, are almost useless. And the reason I say almost is because they look at it like they have to have us right now because they need us to run this whole planet, because I feel like even it grew a little bit bigger than they may have even anticipated. And that's part of the reason why they're kind of frantic sometimes, and the reason that they have a hard time keeping up with their lies. First off, and the way that they do things and slow stuff down was because they want you to get bored with it. So you stop watching it. Okay? So this division, in my opinion, and I've talked to people about human farming and everything like this, I think the globalists, the elitists in this world that want one world order are demasculating men because they want the male species, besides the ones that they say, to go extinct, and it only be women, so they have all of the resources that they need to be able to keep this planet running for as long as they want, how they want. Okay? Now, because, and I know I've been at fault for this and stuff like that, but they're always taken, for the most part, every once in a while you get a man that, they take the man's side. But for the most part, they take the woman's side and they drive the man down into the ground, and they, they're like virtually stomping the man's face into the ground. It's that simple. And if you're having this happen to you, you understand this, because I feel like I'm having it happen to me. All right? So they're wanting the pick of the litter when it comes to women. They want all the women. And they want all the men to go away, which is why the elitists, the globalists, are working on AI, because then they have a workforce of completely complacent, even if it's just basic complacency, that at any time they just hit one big button and it shuts down the whole system. And hopefully that works, if that ever comes to that. But they're trying to just make men, real men, hardworking men, and, young men in this world that have helped build this country, that did build this country, that built this world. I think that they're trying to make us go extinct. That's why they make it so difficult on us. And that's why the, what is it, like 68% of suicides in the world are men. All right? They're doing this on purpose. And I hear people talk about this, but I've never had anybody take it as deep as I have and actually call out the globalists, because in actuality, it's dangerous. I mean, it really is. And look at me. I'm showing my face, Crazy, isn't it? But, we're also living in a point in history where, if somebody is anybody, it doesn't matter if it's me, because I'm sure there's other people out there, and some people, talk about this but don't hide their face and all that kind of stuff. Or some people do hide their face. It doesn't matter. If they really wanted to find us, they could. But if people like me and these other people that talk about this same stuff started popping off the face of the planet in droves, families would start freaking out. There would be riots. I guarantee it. If enough people that are trying to educate folks, even the people that don't necessarily agree with what I'm saying would probably start to take notice if all this stuff stopped popping up all over the place, because there would be parents and there would be brothers and sisters and friends and family that are like, what's happening, what's going on, and maybe they start, well, that guy, he was big into this weird kind of stuff. It's just something that's happening, and it might take a little while to happen, but eventually it'll be known. So I really feel like we're at that rock and a hard spot, between a rock and a hard place, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, where it's either we get ahead of the rock and kick the hard spot out of the way, or we get crushed by the rock. Which is why I keep talking about this being like time. It's time. Like, it's almost, I swear to you, it's almost like our government is begging us to do this. Because even they're probably tired of it, or it's getting too crazy for them, or, because there's a lot of craziness out there. I mean, there really is. And I don't want to see people go through this. I'm tired of seeing young men told their whole lives that they're pieces of shit because they got dick and balls, and I don't care if I get demonetized, because there are people that will still find this somehow, some way, and I don't really give a shit if I make money. It's just, it is what it is, I guess. But I'm tired of seeing it, and I'm tired of women. Women are very special, but without a seed, they can't do shit. Just like without an egg, a man can't do shit. It takes both of us, It takes both of us to create balance in this world. And until we bring balance back to this world, then we're going to be stuck in this same never-ending cycle until they finally take all of our guns and the whole world is under one big control, and we're all enslaved, and the men slowly start dying off because they're already taking testosterone away from men, and their birth control gets pissed out into the water, and they say they filter it, but I mean, it's starting to even show signs in young boys that they're having more estrogen into their body. And it's known that a lot of it's coming from the water. Some of it's coming from the food and stuff like that. So, really what this is boiling down to do y'all really want to see this possibility happen? I'm telling you, the apocalypse or the revolution, or however you want to look at it, it's really one and the same if you break it down, because of where we're at in history and the technologies that we have. There are nuclear power plants all over this place. There are missiles all over this place. There apparently are two, but I seen somewhere where it's possibly 40 nuclear missiles that went missing during Obama's office, term in office and everything like that. So it really boils down to is how long do you want to keep seeing this not just our country, but the world kind of suffer at the hands of the globalists? I mean, when are we really gonna stand up for ourselves? We outnumber them. Who cares if they've got bigger technology? They're either going to use it or they're not. And they're only going to probably use it if it comes down to, the last few of them and it's do or die, and they might do it. But that's why I was saying, the other day, if you work for power and water and stuff like that, you need to stay. If you're not, and you're a man, all right, or even a young man, we should all be standing up for this. And women, if you want to come out there too and show support for your men and what they're trying to do to bring all of this back around, then do it. But children and people that run real important shit need to stay home. So, I don't want to make this video too long. I'm already coming up on 30 minutes, and I know this is a really kind of dry And, it's not as exciting as some videos and stuff like that. But I really feel like the time is now, folks. Like, we need to put a stop to this before we can't put a stop to this. It's that serious. So, just remember, this is Cloachy Bogmarsh, and I stand with the people. And I love you, whatever side you're on, and I just want to see us all truly be free and away from the bullshit, and us all to be able to live the simple, quiet lives that we talk about. All right? It's just how it is, because eventually, a couple of years, it ain't going to be like that anymore. So, Cloachy out.